Great story that I talk about in the book. I almost called the book Positive Deviance, but then it would have been a totally different book. Jerry Sternin is a researcher, I think out of Connecticut, and he went to Vietnam to help alleviate childhood starvation, hunger, diarrhea. And the traditional way to do that would be to show up with a bunch of studies, a bunch of powdered milk, a bunch of money, and tell the people in the village in Vietnam exactly what to do. But what Jerry did instead is he and his partner went there and looked at the village until they found a family that was doing great, a family that wasn't malnourished, a family where the kids were doing fine. And he said to that woman, come, teach the people at the next hut, teach the people over here, teach the whole village. By finding a deviant who stands out by being better, not by being worse, and giving that deviant a platform, he led from the bottom up. Not a good expression, bottom up, but it's the best way I have to talk about it. That is where real leadership happens. That what's been fascinating for me with the tribe is my temptation was to do everything. And to say to do this, and to do this, and to do this, because I'm a leader, that's what I'm supposed to do. And I forced myself not to do that. And as a result, we're talking about thousands and tens of thousands of posts and hundreds of groups. We're talking about being online at Sunday morning at 4:30, and there were 31 other people there. Right? That these folks, you, stood up and said, I want to lead this little bit, I want to lead this little bit. And many failures occurred. But that's okay, because no one really saw those. But when successes happened, when the positive deviants stepped up, it was easy to shine a light on them. It was easy to say, look what this person did, and look what that person did. And so the tribe gets stronger. If I look online at Etsy, Etsy is giving eBay a run for its money in the handmade crafts business. What you notice is that the people who sell on Etsy do a lot of the buying on Etsy. That the providers are also the buyers. What you notice is if you go to Etsy and become a new seller, ostensibly you're competition for the old sellers. But the old sellers will rush over and tell you how to do it better. That what has been built here is a very lightweight, from a top-down point of view, tribe. Or this is the Longaberger Basket Company. This is actually their headquarters. It looks like a basket. And the people who collect Longaberger baskets are also the people who sell Longaberger baskets. And they're obsessed with it just as much as the Etsy people are obsessed with what they're selling. What it comes down to is what Kevin Kelly talked about. This might be the whole world, but all you need is 1,000 true fans. All you need are 1,000 people who will cross the street for you, who will show up, not sure why, who will pre-order that item without actually understanding all its implications, because they're insiders. They're the ones you've persuaded. So if you're an author and you can't get 100 people to love your book enough to tell their friends, then you shouldn't publish your book. It doesn't matter how many blurbs you get. It doesn't matter how much bookstore display you get. If you can't get 100 people, you lose. That's a really hard thing for a lot of marketers to get through their head. So I'm going to let you think about that for a second. So I want to give you a couple examples of what's worked and what hasn't, and the thinking behind it, because I hope you'll see the variety that's here. This is one of my favorite examples to talk about. And now that my wife doesn't work at Audible/Amazon anymore, I'm allowed to talk about it. This is a Kindle, and it could have been an unbelievable home run. And maybe one day Jeff will make it that. But right now, it's just an ebook reader. It's an ebook reader that I have to use by myself. And that the only way it sells is when someone likes it enough that they tell 2 or 3 of their good friends, you should get one too. And generally, we're finding that women are the ones who are doing that, and most of the people who use a Kindle are women. But wait a minute. They had such an opportunity to lead and connect a tribe. Book readers are only 5% of the population. We're desperately looking for other book readers all the time. So why isn't it that I can get one of these for everyone in my book group, and as I'm reading, I can see what they're saying on each page about what I just read? Why can't I make it so that as a business person, when I look at business books to buy on the Kindle, I can't sort them by percentage of the book read before the person stopped reading it? Right? Why can't the whole thing turn into a communications platform that happens to have books as its fuel? Because if he had done that, if they had launched the Kindle that way, it would have become the essential element for all the people in the tribe. Because you needed to know what the other people were thinking. You desperately want to be connected. If there's only 400 people who read an obscure Ukrainian novel, don't you want to know who the other 400 people are, at least what they think of what you just read? You're dying to know who read that book that you just read, so that you can share, but you can't right now. Not with this, and not with a paper book. Part of the reason this is hard is because being a leader means doing something worth being criticized for. And your whole life, you've been told not to do that. First grade, second grade, fourth grade, 8th grade, 12th grade. Don't wear that costume for Halloween. People might think you're a dork. Then we go to work, and there's the manual, and there's the supervisor, and there's the boss. Don't do that, you might get in trouble. You go to set up at the Consumer Electronics Show. Don't plug that in, the electrician has to do it for you. Over and over and over again, we're told, don't do something that might get you put in the corner. But that's all leaders do, all day long. And we say, well, I'll do that when I'm the boss. I don't have enough leverage to do that right now. It's not my job. Well, I want to talk to you about a guy named Tom Barnett. If you think you work for a bureaucracy, let's talk about Tom Barnett. Tom worked for the Pentagon. One of the biggest bureaucracies in the history of mankind. He was at the lowest possible level. Associate professor at the War College. Hundreds of miles from Washington, D.C. He made a PowerPoint about the future of the Pentagon. He showed it to 5 people at the War College. They were so excited about what they saw, they made him show it to 10 people, and then 50 people, and he worked his way through, and then he started traveling to Washington, and the last stop, he showed the PowerPoint to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. How did he do that? He did it by saying something no one wanted to hear, they said, until he did it. And then when he did it, they realized it's exactly what they needed to hear, and they needed other people to hear it too. So by doing that very first little step, possibly offending 5 people, he created a movement within the Pentagon that got him all the way to the top. A key part of thinking here is you don't need everyone. You just need some people, a few people. That's a really hard thing to think about. Let me give you a couple examples from the music industry. Okay? Harry Chapin, I was a big fan of his. He was famous. Why? Was it because he went from coffee house and coffee house and coffee house until 200 million people had heard him? No. He was famous because one disc jockey loved his work. He even wrote a song about the disc jockey. And by playing that music, until it got through to people, it spread to other radio stations. And 100 disc jockeys or 1,000 disc jockeys made all the difference in him having an impact. Very top-down approach. Harry Chapin had a daughter, Jen. Jen is building a tribe. One person at a time. She knows she can't go to DJs, but even if she could, that's not the way to do it. The way to do it is to touch people, connect with them, connect them to each other, and lead them somewhere. So, if you want to join Jen's tribe, do you think there are many steps involved, or do you think it's pretty straightforward? What's fascinating, other than the sheer talent and insight of the two of them and the work, is that it makes sense. That it makes so much more sense to know that people can just Google Jen Chapin, and then they'll figure it out, and then they'll join, and then they'll connect, and then they'll follow, and then it'll grow, and then it'll grow if you earn it. Than it does to hope that some guy in a suit and a limo will introduce you to some other guy and pay him to play you on the radio, and maybe, just maybe, you'll get played on the radio again, and maybe you'll show up in a record store, oh, I forgot they're out of business. No, it doesn't work anymore. That what Jimmy Buffett does for a living is what the Grateful Dead used to do for a living. Jimmy Buffett doesn't try to have top 40 songs anymore. Jimmy Buffett understands that the parrot heads want to go to a party and they want to meet other parrot heads, and that's what he does for a living. He connects them. He leads them. Kristen Hirsch has been making music for 20 years, even though she looks like she's about 15. What Kristen did is she built a blog, and she writes provocative stuff, and she sings provocative songs, and she has a following. One day she said, wouldn't it be neat if I offered my tribe a chance to buy a CD for $50? But for $50, I will re-record each song on the CD, so it's one and only one. And you get to pick which, any 8 or 10 of the 2,000 songs that she's recorded. So she puts it on her blog. 20 minutes later, at $50 a piece, she sold 100. Now she says, wait a minute, that's a lot of songs to sing over and over and over. So she